In this week's video, I'd like to talk about a topic that's heavy on my heart. It's called suffering. I chose this topic because I grew up in Africa. I grew up in a little country south of Africa called Zimbabwe. It's the shape of a teapot if you look on our map. We're at the north of South Africa, the south of Zambia. So it'll be west of Mozambique and east of Botswana. Anyway, let's define the topic suffering. According to a Google search, suffering, or the other name, pain, in a broad sense, may be an experience of unpleasantness and aversion associated with the perception of harm or threat of harm in an individual. Suffering is the basic element that makes up the negative valence of affective phenomena. The opposite of suffering is pleasure or happiness. Growing up, we used to be very happy. We didn't know better. We were very happy to be alive. We were happy to be in the moments we found ourselves in. As little kids, all we wanted was food and the ability to go play. We didn't know the reality that sat outside our lives. We really didn't care, to be honest. All we cared about was knowing our parents were coming home at night and tomorrow was another day to go play. But the reality was quite different for our parents, because for them, they had grown up and they had seen what life had to offer. And when they saw us, they saw little independent human beings. They saw dependent human beings upon them, and they knew that they had to protect us from the harsh realities of the world. They gave us the best education they could afford. They did the best that they could with the little that they had. For them, they knew what we lacked. For us, we thought we had everything. I grew up in a house where we hardly watched TV, not because we didn't afford to, but because we didn't want to. But for our parents, as they went to their works or to their job and would discuss the new latest cartoons that the other affluent kids were watching, I guess for them, you can say they felt bad that they could not provide the same for their kids. They would go out of their way to bring us new gifts, new toys. I remember one of my favorite chocolates. I was shocked when I grew up. It only cost 50 cents. But when I was a kid, I thought this was the world's most expensive chocolate, because my mom made it so special for us whenever she brought it home. Anyway, you're probably wondering, when am I going to start speaking about suffering when I had a very happy childhood? My life changed as I grew up. I started going to church. In church, they reminded me that happiness was a fleeting feeling, a feeling that didn't exist, that we find joy in the Lord, but bear the cross every day of our life, carry the burdens of our ancestors or whatever. I was a kid, I really didn't understand what he was talking about. But as I grew older, as I started going to high school, I started to live in a world outside my own. I started to live in a world that's surrounded by people with different ideas of what life is. I began to get exposed to different family, people from different backgrounds. And in those moments, you start to realize where you stood in terms of classes. And I didn't come from a high class, I came from a low class. You start to realize where you fit in and where you don't. See, my mom always made sure that we were not defined by our reality. But when you get into a situation where people want you to know your reality so that they can feel good for themselves, that's when you start to suffer as a child. See, your self-confidence, tell me which little 2-year-old suffers from self-confidence. Very few, unless abused. So when you become 13, 14, it's not necessarily that you come from a bad family or that you lack confidence in yourself, but it's how others treat you that's different from how you're treated at home that educates you to who you are. See, as a little kid, you have no idea of knowing what the social economy looks like. You have no idea because you only know life in one way. and all of a sudden life is binary. It's not, and life is good or bad. You didn't know that. All you thought is life was what it was, and then now you're exposed to this new element. As you go through high school, you start to develop things like feelings for girls, and now you have to compete with other kids for the same girls, and in order to compete you start to use resources. Then that's when you first get your heart broken, because you gave this girl everything you had, but it was not enough. And then hello, Mr. Pain. See, for some reason we are told this is the passage of life that everybody has to experience and go through. You have to suffer at some point of your life. I get it, it's part of life, suffering. You see, there is no growth without pain. There is no growth without suffering. But where my vendetta with suffering comes is when people tell me, or when people say no pain, no gain. That's when I have an issue. See, there is no gain that comes after suffering. Gain is only there after perseverance. You see, if let's for example say you're a little boy and you're looking for love, right, for your first girlfriend, and you ask out 5 girls and they all say no, and then the 6th one says yes. She did not say yes because the last 5 said no. She said yes because of your persistence and your ability to pick yourself up after falling down 5 times, and to ask her out with confidence and with everything that you have, giving and everything that you got. That's the reason she gives you an opportunity to be with her. She doesn't date you because you are this amazing sufferer. There is no reward for suffering. I'll give you another example. Look at, if you're looking for a job, you can spend 2 years looking for a job, but the moment you get it, you only pay for that month. They don't pay you for your suffering, but you are paid because you remain persistent and consistent. There is no reward for the pain that you feel. And I speak this to everybody, man. Going through what we go through, I need you to understand that you are not rewarded for how much you suffer. You can be in a relationship that's not good for you, but you're staying because you believe there's a reward. You believe somebody will change. Trust me, whatever makes a person change has nothing to do with how much you suffered. They only change because it was time for them to change. A lot of people say to me, you leave relationships early, you do not stay around so long. It's because I realized that staying in a relationship doesn't change it. A person doesn't change because of me. A person changes because of himself. There is no point for me to suffer. There is no point for me to bear the pain or to go through distress for another human being. There is no reward for pain. You are only rewarded for your courage and for your perseverance. Look at anything you want to look at in life, man. Every day I always wonder, why is Africa so poor? Why do we accept the things that happen to us to happen? And we have been indoctrinated by this belief that there is a reward for our suffering, like if we suffer today we'll be rewarded. There is no reward for suffering. Nobody rewards you for that. There are no badges of honor for how much we suffer. There is no badge of honor for how much pain one carries. There is no badge of honor for how much distress somebody goes through. In this world, in this life, you're only rewarded for one thing, and that's for your perseverance and value. If you want to go through the Bible with me, I'll go through it with you. Let's take a look at Jacob when he wanted Rachel. See, his uncle cheated him out of his first wife and gave him Leah. I hope that's her name. For 7 years he had worked. For 7 years he had suffered. For 7 years they had passed by and he was cheated out of the wife he wanted. But this man did not go away. He worked another 7 years. He underwent pain and distress and got Leah and got Rachel. And for some reason, preachers and people who interpret the Bible try to tell us that the only reason he got his wife was he was willing to suffer for 14 years. I don't believe so. He only got his wife because he chose to work for her for those 7 years and be courageous. Suffering is part of the game. It's part of the process. It doesn't have anything to do with the reward. Rachel was not Jacob's wife because he suffered. She was his wife because he persevered. He could have quit 6 years in. He would not have gotten his wife. The same with any other character in the Bible who had a mission. For some reason, we really do, and we are really pushed to believe that we are rewarded for our suffering. We are rewarded for the amount of pain we can carry. There is no reward for the pain we carry. There is no reward for how much we can withhold distress. See, I always laugh when people tell me, man up. I have never understood that statement. Man, I'm going through pain and you're telling me to man up. But when I think about it, when people say man up, all they mean is you do not have to suffer. We understand what you're going through, but you do not have to suffer. See, because that's the thing about being a man, right? You are there to carry the burdens of others. You are there to serve and to protect those around you. See, as a man, you don't get to get unconditional anything. You get to get conditional. Because if you, as a man, suffer, who is there to protect the family? But that doesn't give you the right to make your family suffer. That doesn't give you the right to make your family go through pain, distress, or hardship. It means it's your job to make sure your family never suffers, that they never know what it's like to be in distress, and they understand how to process it when they do go through it. I thank you.